everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're here because we have a truly fascinating journey ahead of us. Today, we're impartially mapping out a really remarkable source, one that draws some incredible lines between the 8th century teachings of Hazrat Imam Jafar Sadiq and modern scientific discoveries. Honestly, whether you're a massive history buff or a total science nerd, seeing how this source connects ancient classroom concepts directly to the modern laboratory is just incredibly thought-provoking. So let's just jump right in and unpack these claims step by step. We've got a really cool micro to macro journey planned for today. We'll start with the beginning of medical science, move into the human body and diseases, scale up to the secrets of nature and elements, and then finally zoom way out to space and the universe. Okay, let's dive right into part one, the beginning of medical science, and specifically the paradigm shift in healing. To really get the impact of the Imam's teachings, we kind of have to look at the historical context of that era. Before this time, treating the sick was widely viewed as a pretty lowly, unrespected task. It definitely wasn't a profession of prestige. But the Imam reportedly flipped this entire paradigm completely on its head. He taught his students that treating human beings is actually an honorable and great act of worship. Historical records suggest he was the very first to formally teach medical science in his madrasa, essentially laying down a foundation that modern doctors are still walking on today. And this knowledge didn't just stay confined to one single room. It spread. A 1972 study conducted by a Hindu university cited in our source noted a pretty massive figure, 400. That is the number of key students the Imam reportedly taught. They acted as these vital historical conduits, taking this revolutionary approach to medicine and science and spreading it globally. The texts argue that without them, the scientific world might not be anywhere near where it is today. Moving right along, let's zoom in a bit for Section 2, the human body and diseases, focusing on elements, diet, and diagnostics. Now, this is where it gets crazy specific. We're talking about the chemical breakdown of the human body. The text details the Imam's claim that whatever elements exist in the Earth's soil exist in the exact same proportions in the human body, specifically 20 elements. He categorized them by abundance. So you have your top four, like oxygen and carbon, the next 8 in lesser amounts, like chlorine and iron, and the lowest 8 trace elements, like zinc. According to historical records, this highly specific 20-element composition was actually validated centuries later by French and Australian doctors across the 18th and 19th centuries. So think about this for a second. If we're literally perfectly balanced combinations of these 20 Earth elements, why do we get sick? What is it that actually disrupts that delicate balance? Well, let's look at the 4 historical answers provided by the Imams. That 8th century classroom outlined 4 primary causes of illness. First, an imbalance of those 20 elements we just talked about. Second, an unhealthy diet. In fact, when asked what specifically reduces a lifespan, the Imam explicitly warned against eating excess meat and simply overeating. And that link between excess food and a shortened lifespan, that was later confirmed by 18th century French doctors. Third on the list was illnesses caused by airborne germs entering the body. And fourth, which was definitely the most controversial at the time, invisible rays emitting from the sick. People actually mocked the idea back then that a sick body could emit invisible rays that harm other people. But just look at how the history unfolds here. It brilliantly illustrates the evolution of an idea. This 8th century teaching leads directly to an 18th century Russian scientist who spent 20 years researching and proving it. This eventually bridged right into the modern era, where American researcher Dr. John Imam published extensive work on bodily emissions and radiation, ultimately paving the way for radiation therapy. Oh, and before we move off the topic of human biology, the source shares this really fascinating piece of childcare wisdom. The Imam advised mothers to sleep their babies near the left side of their chest, right near the heart. The reasoning? The baby spent 9 months listening to that exact heartbeat in the womb. Hearing it again keeps them calm, helps them sleep peacefully, and prevents distress. And sure enough, historical records show that this profound psychological insight was later heavily researched and totally confirmed by a 19th century American university. All right, let's pull back and look at our immediate environment with Section 3, Secrets of Nature and Elements, diving into chemistry and optics. The crucial point to take away here is this amazing juxtaposition between a widely accepted belief and a visionary insight. For centuries, Aristotle's view completely dominated scientific thought. People believed everything was made of just 4 macro-based elements: earth, wind, water, and fire. But the Imam, he argued that Aristotle made a massive mistake. He taught that earth, wind, water, and fire are definitely not base elements. They're actually collections of even smaller individual elements. And to prove this microelement theory, the Imam used water as his prime example, making a claim that frankly sounded completely absurd at the time. He said, water contains an element that can actually start a fire. Fast forward to 1766. A scientist proves that water isn't a single element at all. It's made of hydrogen and oxygen. And just as the historical text suggests, if you remove the oxygen, you are left with hydrogen, a highly flammable gas. This ancient claim perfectly maps to modern chemistry. We see a very similar paradigm shift in optics, too. People genuinely used to believe that human eyes basically emitted light like flashlights in order to see objects. The Imam corrected this. He taught that light actually reflects off objects, enters the eye inverted, and then the brain does all the heavy lifting of correcting the image. According to these records, an Oxford scientist later validated this exact mechanism, and understanding this reflection and focal point science directly led to the invention of a telescope in 1608. Let's move to our final point and see how this builds, zooming all the way out to section 4, space and the universe. We've officially reached the macro scale. You know that very telescope we just mentioned? It actually proved another one of the Imam's teachings. Back in the 8th century, he described the moon not just as some flat light hanging in the sky, but as a distinct world with its own mountains and valleys. People laughed at him. But in 1610, using that newly invented telescope, Galileo looked at the moon and observed those exact lunar mountains for the very first time in recorded modern history. And his astronomical teachings certainly didn't stop at the moon. Consider this incredible quote attributed to the Imam. Our sun is like an extinguished lamp compared to other stars. Just think about the sheer mind-bending scale being described there. In an era with zero modern technology, he was visualizing a cosmos so incredibly vast that our massive, blinding sun is practically a burnt-out matchstick compared to the titans out there in deep space. Honestly, it's a staggering claim for the ancient world. The teaching was that those tiny little points of light we see in the night sky were actually stars thousands of times larger than our sun. It actually took until 1963, with the invention and application of super advanced radio telescopes, for modern science to finally observe and confirm the existence of these massive superstars, proving once and for all that our sun is indeed on the smaller side of the cosmic scale. These texts wrap up with three final, incredibly advanced claims taught in that 8th century madrasa. First, that day and night are caused by the Earth rotating, not the sun moving around a stationary Earth. Second, that there isn't just one sun and one Earth, but millions of other suns and Earths existing in the universe, hinting at exoplanets way before they were discovered. And third, physics at its absolute most fundamental. Every single thing, living or non-living, is in constant internal motion. That is a concept later proven when scientist J.J. Thomson and others revealed the constant vibrating motion of electrons and protons inside atoms. We've traveled all the way from the 20 elements inside our own bodies to the mechanics of how our eyes process light, all the way out to the massive superstars of the cosmos. As we wrap up today, I want to leave you with a provocative thought. If an 8th century classroom, without telescopes, microscopes, or radiation detectors, could map out these realities centuries before modern tools even existed, what other historical insights are just waiting to be rediscovered? Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you in the next explainer.